Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter and I'm joined as always by Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
This is our science fiction movie podcast. We get together every week. We've watched the movie and we talk about it. And on this week's episode, we are looking at the month's vote winner. Because every month on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, our $5 and up patrons get to vote between 4 movies. And in what is by far the biggest landslide that we have ever had in one of these votes, all but one vote was for this movie. Which
what was the category?
I think it was aliens. I think it was aliens in movies. But regardless, the winner was in fact John Carpenter's They Live, which, you know, is an exciting thing for me because I saw this movie once as a teenager, which, I don't know, about 15, 16 years ago, give or take, whenever that lands. And I've not seen it since. This was the first time for me. Even so, I bought the DVD as a teenager. I watched the DVD. I bought it on Blu-ray at some point. Never watched the Blu-ray. It just kind of sat there, like a lot of Blu-rays did, because I'll be honest, I had a problem. But I didn't watch the Blu-ray this time. Because I got it in 4K on iTunes and watched it, because we've skipped the whole format since I watched this movie. So yes, so
you haven't watched any of like the commentary or any of the behind the scenes stuff or any of the bonus features?
Oh no, I'm pretty sure I listened to the commentary way back on DVD, like just after I watched it for the first time, because it's Carpenter and Piper, because Roddy Piper of course is in this movie. He's one of the 2 leads along with Keith David, and also sexy business lady from Leviathan. What was she? It was bugging me because she came up recently because you told me, oh, it's her from Leviathan. I was like, what did she come up in recently?
I don't know. I feel like I would know those eyes anywhere.
It was something recently. I was really bugging me. I mean like relative, you know, 3 or 4 in the last 3 months, something like that.
I don't know. Maybe she was in like a Babylon 5 episode.
Yeah, it must have been something like that. But I was like, oh, she seems familiar, and then sure enough, I was like, oh yeah, it's Leviathan lady.
Yeah.
The one who RoboCop knocks out.
Hey, don't spoil it.
What a moment. That was actually one of our bonus episodes, which you can get by supporting us on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for just $1. Speaking of RoboCop,
at the end of the movie.
Speaking of RoboCop, though.
Speaking of. No, actually, I don't know what's the connection.
I just said RoboCop knocked her out, and I said, speaking of RoboCop, and then I plugged Patreon. You can get the bonus movies for $1. Speaking of RoboCop,
I'd buy that for $1.
It just took like 5 minutes of explanation to get it out of her.
But this isn't a thing that we set up before.
I know, but you've said I'd buy that for $1 in your Patreon plugs a few times. That's you. You've done that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, I just, I don't yes and very well.
I'm referencing your own patter here. I'm not just referencing things that you'll know. I'm referencing your own thing.
As much as I would like to claim RoboCop as my own thing, it's not. It's Pulverhoven.
You know what I mean? Using it in the Patreon. That's your... Never mind. Okay. So we're going to talk about They Live. Science fiction film about aliens, starring Roddy Piper and Keith David, directed by John Carpenter. This is 1988. This came out. So this is, I will say, right at the tail end of good Carpenter, before things maybe take a bit of a turn. I don't want to quite say go off as a cliff, although there's an argument to be made.
I'm not that much of a Carpenter enthusiast to know. Sure,
but this is very much near the end of his good era. Now, I know that a lot of people are yelling because in the early 90s he made a film called In the Mouth of Madness. Didn't do that much for me.
Oh, the Sam Neill one.
The Sam Neill one. But no one's going to argue with me on like the rest of his 90s. No, I mean, they're not all terrible. Like, I don't remember vampires being like terrible, but I don't remember it being that great either. And plus, James Woods is just James Woods.
I mean, he's a good actor. He's a bit his politics I don't really by, but
sure. Yeah. But anyway, so about the live, we'll start spoiler free like we always do. We'll give you warning before we go into spoilers. The basic premise is that Rowdy Roddy Piper comes, and I'm saying Rowdy, if you like, in the off chance like you're younger than us and you have no idea why I'm saying Rowdy Roddy Piper instead of just Roddy Piper like he's credited. That was what he was called in wrestling. He was a wrestler.
Yeah, I'm not a wrestling person, but I'm very much aware of him because of, I remember when he died and it was just like all over the place and everybody was talking about him from that and this movie. Is he much of an actor outside of this film?
He had a little phase where he tried to, he's in a movie that we'll probably do for a bonus episode one day called Hell Comes to Frogtown, so look forward to that.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that one.
He had like a little phase where he was in a bunch of movies. This was probably his most like known and like successful. And I mean, I don't know if it was successful financially, but known to the cult audience of today at least. He of course is actually Canadian, but he portrayed a Scottish person for some reason in wrestling.
I can tell because of all the ways he says sorry.
No, it's very obvious whenever he's cutting a promo in wrestling.
One of my people.
He sounds super Canadian, which is it's like, you're not even trying an accent. Like, you're not even going to try and pretend you're Scottish.
Right, yeah.
Like, what are you doing? Come on. But hence the, because I'm not sure if Piper's his real name. It might be because his daughter's got the last name Piper. So I'm wondering if it's just because he has the name Piper that they went, you're going to be a Scottish character.
Beg Piper.
Like, if that was the connection. But he's in this with Keith David, who of course had already worked with Carpenter on The Thing. Maybe some other stuff, but definitely The Thing. And this is
great voice.
A satirical science fiction thriller where they discover the aliens have already taken over and invaded. There's a lot of satire in here, and it's got kind of a slow burn, kind of cool vibe where it kind of unravels its plot as it's kind of very quiet, cool, collected hero, and Piper just kind of discovers things. And I don't want to say too much because I feel like if you've gone too much, you're kind of spoiling what it is. But you know, it's one of those things in pop culture where some of it you just might know anyway. There's certainly, in fact, honestly, the first thing that I kind of want to say about this before I even ask if you liked it and say if I liked it, is that I will say the most famous line of dialogue from this movie, which you've all heard at some point or seen written down or someone's quoted to you, is "I came here to chew bubblegum and kick some ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum," right? I might be slightly misquoting it, but that's the gist of it. I actually, because I'd only seen it once as a teenager, and it's been so long, but I've seen that written down so many times, and I've seen people quote that left and right. His actual delivery of that line is pretty weak. Like, it's a little bit off. The way he says it feels just weird, and I'm like, oh, that's not as badass as I was.
Honestly, like I think he's a decent actor in the film for most of it, except for that one part. Like, I
know the most famous line.
He just becomes a wrestler in that.
I feel that I think you're saying that because you don't watch wrestling. I think good wrestlers who are good at promos. And the funny thing is, it's
true. I'm kind of, I have no idea. I don't watch wrestling.
But the funny thing is like, he was good. He wasn't actually that great in the ring. Like, he didn't really do very many moves. He was a punch and kick guy, which for wrestling is boring, right?
I feel like I've watched a wrestling match with him in the middle of this movie, so.
That wasn't a wrestling match. I mean, that's the other famous thing about this movie, is him and Keith David have this ridiculous fight scene in this movie where
it's like 5 minutes long.
It's ridiculous,
which sounds short, but there's no music and it's just them punching each other.
It's kind of like wrestling in a sense that it's continuous and it kind of tells a story just through the fight, which is what wrestling kind of is. But it's also not like wrestling, and if this was a wrestling match, it'd be really boring. But because in a movie, like, they can use other, like in a wrestling match, you have to just kind of fake punch and kick and just kind of pretend, because it's theater and you have to be able to do it live in front of an audience. But it's a movie, so they've got makeup, they've got like effects, they can be more convincingly brutal. So as the fight goes on, they have kicked the shit out of each other in this.
Well, according to the trivia, they actually did kick this shit out of each other. Like crotch shots and face shots were off limits, but the body shots were all real. They were just like actually just punching each other.
Well, I mean, it comes across, I think, because it feels pretty. It
feels brutal.
Yeah, it feels quite authentic, which it gives us. We'll get to the context of that in spoilers, but yes, that is like one of the famous things about that. It's the kick-ass bubblegum and kick-ass, and it's the fight scene.
Well, I mean, if I could say something real quick, is that unfortunately, like I've never seen this movie before.
Well, this is the first time.
But I know it really well, and I feel like the film has been hijacked in a way
by
for
pop culture.
Some very unfortunate groups of people out there who seem to think that there's some sort of secret cabal that's running the world, and that kind of use. People
I see
who
what you're saying.
Very like far right wing and very like things I don't like repeating. Terrible stuff.
Which is funny because the actual message of the film is
very left.
It's very much that it's the rich. Yeah. I couldn't help but think of a phrase from Mr. Robot when I was watching towards the end of this movie. And Mr. Robot, he refers to the evil people who run the world as the 1% of the 1%. And I couldn't help but think of that phrase, like as I was seeing kind of things unfold towards the end.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Like even when I was going over the IMDb page, I was looking at some of the reviews, and people are giving it 10 out of 10s, and then you look at the reviews, they're like so relevant in a year of where the media is taking over. It's been taken over and telling you propaganda about COVID and stuff. Like, wow, they really missed the point of this film.
I mean, it is relevant. Like that part's not wrong. It is still relevant. It's actually
that is true.
It is shockingly relevant still today. I mean, sure. Obviously, media has changed a little bit. We have internet now. We have all sorts of other like social media. There's a lot of other things going on, but like it's still very relevant. It totally is. So yeah, there you go. So yeah. Oh, I guess I'll ask the question then, Tara. And your first time watch, what was your general feeling for They Live?
I think the movie has some flaws in it, but for the most part, like I really loved it. Like it was great. It was a great watch. Like there are some parts in like the third act that I get a little bit bored, and I find maybe the resolution to be a little unsatisfying, but like for the most part, like the first 2/3 of the movie I think are really, really strong and like really like cool. I mean, you called it kind of cool, and I think it is a cool movie. I like the changes that happens like in the film when the thing arrives that allows him to see the world differently. I actually really like watching this so close to The Matrix also, because I think it's very similar.
No, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking there was some, waking up and seeing the code kind of like parallels to The Matrix. Of course, in this it's a really simple everyday object versus, you wake up in a pool and you're in the real world now. Like all the stuff that goes with that. But it's very same themes as The Matrix in a lot of ways.
Yeah, maybe we should have watched this before The Matrix, but I mean, I'm glad we're watching them like pretty close to each other. I think they are very much similar themes, and as someone who is a bit of an anti-capitalist, I really enjoyed this film, and I hate Ronald Reagan, and this is very much an FU to Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that Carpenter made a movie that was kind of speaking out against that kind of thing.
Right.
So, yeah, no, I liked them. I remembered liking the movie as a teenager, but I remembered because teenage years are like they're an awful time for a lot of reasons. But one of the things that's good about being a teenager and being an emerging fan of film, like I was a fan of film as a kid, but the thing about becoming like an adolescent and then getting into like your teenage and then early adulthood is that time is such a wild time of exciting discovery, because there's so many classics that you won't have stumbled on, that once I had like a little bit of money of my own to spend on DVDs, like I was tracking things down, I was seeing stuff that I'd somehow missed. There was a lot of stuff that you'd think I would have seen as a kid that I didn't see till I went out of my way to buy the DVDs, like Indiana Jones. I'd never seen any of those as a kid. Like I bought the box set when I was like 16, 17, and that's how I watched those movies. Back when there was only 3 of them, of course, but it was it was still a big thing. And I had seen a couple of Carpenter films early on and loved them. And I bought a lot of Carpenter DVDs just because they were John Carpenter movies, and tried a lot of them. And there's some that I love, there's some that I like, there's some that I'm just kind of out on. The Fog, for example, is one that's just kind of okay. And when I watched that again, maybe like 2 years ago now, something like that, with Tim for Screams, I kind of felt the same. I was like, I'm still just kind of out on this. Like, it's got some cool things about it. There's definitely ideas in it I like, and there's visuals I like, but it's definitely one of his weaker films. And
it's probably been like 20 years since I've seen it, but I remember enjoying it as a kid.
Yeah,
but I don't remember any like I don't know, like commentary in the film at all. But I wouldn't have at that age anyway.
Yeah, but it's not even like all of Carpenter's films necessarily has a strong vibe of that. I'm just pointing out that there's some of his films, even though I love generally, I'd say I love Carpenter. There's definitely not everything I love, and that was one that I kind of just felt the same when I saw it again, and Tim agreed, and I was surprised that Tim felt the exact same way I did, that it was kind of like, it was fine, but it was like definitely like lower B tier Carpenter. And the reason why I'm saying all this, the reason why I'm bringing this up, is that I liked Love when I saw it, but I remember thinking, this is like B tier Carpenter. It's not like up to his other standards. And I'm happy to say I like it more now than I did back then. Don't get me wrong, like, it's still fallen underneath like Halloween and The Thing, and maybe a couple others that I really love. But I definitely think I like this movie more than I did when I was a teenager. I don't know if that's just because I'm smarter and wiser and older and just get a lot of what it's saying more. But the funny thing is that I don't think that's why I liked it more this time, even though that's all clearly there. And I think, it's not exactly subtle, so I got it at the time when I watched it. I'm probably a bit more opinionated on those subjects now, so maybe it has more an effect now. But the thing that I thought like I was getting more this time was like I was just loving like we I said it was cool and you agreed it's a cool movie, and right from the opening, just the way it treats Roddy Piper as it's just following him through the city, and the way he'll just be quiet and watch things and pay attention to things, and then the way it'll just be, and there's a section where Act 2 of this movie, right, there's a section kind of where shit kind of hits the fan about 25-30 minutes into this 90-minute movie, and there's a section where it's him walking around with new eyes, let's just say. That like 15-20 minute section is excellent. Like phenomenal. It's wonderful for a variety of reasons, and I would agree that the final like 30 minutes is probably the weakest chunk of the movie, but I still had fun with it. It still felt like it was just them like, okay, we had this cool idea for this premise, we had this cool idea for how to discover all of it, and then we're at that point where, okay, we have to just sort of come up with a resolution now. It's definitely the weakest part, but I still think it was just a case of, let's just have fun and do some silly shit with this. Like, that's what it feels like. It feels like Carpenter and the cast are just like, let's just have some fun and do some wacky shit and have this kind of satirical like ending, and so like I think that's because I'm never going to love it as much as something that feels like The Thing or Halloween, which they're like so like constructed and defined, and they are perfectly paced and timed and resolved films. Whereas this to me is like, we had this fun idea, we're so good at what we do, it's going to be slick, it's going to feel like a fun ride, and then for the ending, we're just like, let's just try something and see if it works. And it kind of does, and it's not as fulfilling as some other films.
I think it definitely works. I think it's just not as good as the first like 2/3 of the film, especially that middle chunk where where he sees the world in new eyes. That whole section is phenomenal. But
basically from the moment that there's a sort of like a ruckus that happens all the way through to the big fight with Keith David, that entire chunk of the movie is like excellent. Like it's just excellent, that chunk. So we'll get to it in a bit in spoilers. So we'll talk about some, obviously cinematography is usually great with Carpenter. Music has got that. It's kind of like it's a Carpenter sounding score, but it's got more of like a sort of funkiness to it.
It's cooler.
Yeah, it's cool. It sounds like he took his Prince of Darkness, which is I think what he did right before this, and this was like right after, but it's got more of an upbeat funkiness to it. And that's
I haven't seen Prince of Darkness.
The feel it gave me. I would recommend it. I like. Is
that a Dracula movie?
Sorry?
Is it a Dracula film?
No, nothing to do with Dracula.
Oh, okay.
Alice Cooper's in it though. If that's an
He
appeal.
does like to have interesting casting, I suppose.
I mean, he doesn't have any lines of dialogue, but he is there.
Yeah, this movie really feels like he was very upset with Ronald Reagan, especially since this came out like at the end of his term.
Mm.
So it was very much it does seem like it's a passion project of John Carpenter. He wrote it also.
He writes a lot of his movies, to be fair. That's not...
Well, I mean, like, this seems like a very... like, I'm really upset with America and the world right now.
Said,
and
though,
I have a lot to say about it, so I'm going to get this movie out.
We should clarify, though, he did not come up with the idea for the story. It's based on a short story.
No, it's based on something else. But the politics are very relevant to the time it came out.
Oh, for sure. But yeah, but I think it's important to clarify that it's not his original idea. Same with The Thing. Obviously, there's a lot of that is him, but it is based on something.
Yeah.
So
Thing from Another World, which I think was also a remake. Isn't it the second remake of The Thing?
Oh, no, I was like, you know that The Thing from Another World and The Thing are based on the same story, right?
Well, I knew that there was some sort of, like, The Thing was not. I knew The Thing wasn't original, and that The Thing from Another World was not original.
Yeah, but
I didn't know what they came from before.
It was a short story, I think. But the Thing is not based on Thing from Another World. The movie, like if the John Carpenter's The Thing, I believe. I mean, I've never read it, but I believe it's much closer to what the original short story is. Whereas, because
there's a new version of that story that came out, right? Or like a new ending or something.
I don't know if it's a new ending, but they definitely found more of it. Like, there's a more complete version of it now, so they might do a new movie because they have more of the story to adapt now. So I guess it's a good enough reason as any, but that's not to say that John Carpenter doesn't love the original Thing from Another World, because he put it in Halloween. Like, the kids are watching it in Halloween, so he clearly has some affection for it. But the original Thing from Another World, which I'm sure we'll do at some point, like, just take.
Yeah, I watched it.
It's just like a generic like monster guy and it's an Arctic base, but it's like a vegetable man who's like running around terrorizing people. It's nothing like the John Carpenter movie at all.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought it was worth clarifying. But yeah, no, I think everything about it just feels so slick. Everything about it feels so like these two guys are badasses, and we know they're badasses. They know they're badasses. We're going to just let them be badasses.
Yeah, I think it's really good casting. I think it's having somebody there who represents like a certain part of America. You know, the type that the blue collar, the worker who has the big dreams of you know what the capitalism promises you, of if you work really hard and if you do everything right, then you'll be rewarded with success. But the system's failing them. Yeah, right. It's failing them, even though they still believe in it. Like, it's I think it's smart casting, and I think it's good to have, you know, someone there who also represents a minority group in America as well. Yeah, because I mean, I think I think Roddy Piper, he's not an ugly man by any means. He's perfectly fine. He's not like whatever, but he's also not like your superstar leading man either, right? And I think that's kind of important. Obviously, you can tell that there's a scene early on where he's like working at a work site and he's got his shirt off. He's like, okay, he's a big guy. He's built, right? He's clearly a man who works out, and given what he does professionally before he was an actor, that makes a lot of sense that he's pretty ripped. But there's even a moment, I think Keith David looks over at him because he's sort of like sweating and he stops digging for a minute and he sort of wipes his brow and he looks over at Piper. He's like, shit, that dude's jacked. I better get back to work. Get my muscles going up. Right, yeah. So it's inspirational, not threatening. But yeah, he's like, damn, I need to get pumping here. I really like seeing Keith David in like a bigger role too, because I usually see him as more of a, you know, I mean, I guess he's kind of a side character here, but he's like second billing, but I usually just see him as just like a minor role in a thing where I'm like, oh, I like that guy.
He's definitely
He's got a great voice.
He's definitely the second lead. Like, I obviously the focus is more on Piper because we spend time with him on his own for a bit. But there comes a point in the movie where he's around pretty much the same amount. So
I just, he's got a great presence, great voice, and he's a great actor. And I just don't, I always see him in just a minor role. So it was really nice to watch a film where he was, so in it.
He's always very dependable. Like you say, he's got a good voice. He, I think the first thing I ever saw him in probably was Pitch Black, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
Just because that was a contemporary film when I was young, and then obviously I went back and saw like other things that he's been in. But I mean, he's in a lot of things that I probably can't even remember because, like you say, he's in a lot of small roles. He's definitely done a lot of video game like voiceover things as well.
He voices the president in Rick and Morty for these past few seasons. I
want to say, it's funny enough, having a wrestler in this, I want to say he voiced over a long documentary series about wrestling. Then it's sort of thing where he probably was credited at the end, and I just wasn't paying attention. But it was one of those things where I heard the voice and immediately went, "Is that Keith David?" That sounds a lot like Keith David. So, no, that's neat. Casting's good. Action's fun. We can't really talk much about it, but I will say I really like the look of the aliens. I'll just leave it at that. Especially since for the large majority of the time you see them in black and white, and it looks especially good in black and white.
Agree.
So, so that's good too. I guess we can probably go to spoilers in a minute, but I'm just want to make sure we're covering all the bases.
I mean everything I think I want to talk about. I'm like, I can wait till spoilers. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there you go. We'll give you the spoiler warning then for They Live. So let's get into it. So Regis to Piper's character. I don't even know the names. I guess I'll just use the actors' names because
Nada.
It is Nada. You're right. Nada and Frank are the lead characters. But yeah, so Regis to Piper's character, and he is just drifting through the city, and he's kind of impressed with the skyscrapers. He's come from some other state, some Midwest state, and he can't get work, but he goes to a work site and he's like, "Hey, seriously, can you give me something?" And he gets some work. He meets Keith David there. Keith David can see that he's got nowhere to stay really that night. And I'm glossing over kind of a lot of the aesthetic here because that's the important, because this probably takes like a good 10 minutes because a lot of it's him walking around or trying to sleep that night in an alleyway, and he's like watching someone's TV through a window, and we're hearing like snippets of the news broadcasts or the commercials that are being played, and
it's all about extravagance and excess.
And there's a lot of like walking past like entertainment or electronic stores where there's just like a lot of TVs. Like there's like a wall of TVs. And that comes up time and time again. We're surrounded by all this media.
Yeah. It's kind of a trope thing that you see in a lot of movies of this time where you just get the wall of TVs in the window that everyone can stare at and watch the news and hear it perfectly clear. well, I mean, I think the real reason that went away is because now everyone can watch something on their phone. They don't have to be watching a TV anymore. So yeah, I don't really remember that being a thing when I was younger anyway. Just stores with walls of TVs with current events playing all the time.
Yeah, the equivalent now is that everyone's standing in Times Square going like this, like...
Right.
Yeah.
Very good. There is a good scene also where he goes to like some sort of like recruiting agency where he's trying to find work, and he's telling his story about how things haven't worked out for him, but he's a hard worker, and the lady that is there is just rolling her eyes, like not interested at all in what he has to say, like she's heard it so many times before, or she just has zero empathy for him, and it's basically like, well, I can't help you. You'll have to find work on your own out there.
Yeah, she's a cow, basically, for lack of a... I mean,
yeah, she's awful.
it's very intentional because it's the whole point is just she is looking down on him and doesn't care, right? It's like, you're the
she
scum of
literally
society.
has like the biggest eye roll I think I've seen in a film.
Yeah, which is, I think it's unbelievable. I think if he walks in the door, I think if nothing else, his arm size makes you at least go, well, you're clearly committed to keeping in shape. So that's at least a lot of effort that goes into that.
Right.
Shows you've got drive.
You can lift things.
But all this happens, he ends up with Keith David, and I like their first interaction actually, where Keith David tries to be nice and says, "Hey, there's this place that you can go and get like a meal and a hot shower. I'm heading over there myself if you want me to take away." And he just sort of stares at like Piper's a bit of a dick, and Keith David's like, "Oh, fine then," and he just walks off. But then Piper follows him. So then halfway there, Keith David turns around and is like, "Look, dude, you're following me now. Like, what's going on?" He's like, "Well, I don't join up with someone until I can see where they're going." And there's kind of this like mutual respect that's shared where they're both apprehensive equally. But like, okay, all right, I guess we're friends. I get that one interaction, I guess, makes us friends. So yeah, they get to the camp, they're getting hot food, they meet the people who run this little camp for the city's homeless, and it's just a big field or like dirt site. It's nothing fancy.
It's a little bit like what's still happening. It's just a lot of camps, a lot of just areas that have been walled. It's just wall to wall encampments, and
there's nothing that screams 80s to me like a barrel with a fire in it. There's something about a barrel with a fire in it. It just feels like 80s to me.
Well, we get that here. That's 80s homeless. Yeah.
Yeah. What they got now? Like apps for their phones that heat them up.
I don't know. It's so dry here. There's a lot of there's a lot of actual fires that get started because of homeless encampments, but you can't really blame people for being homeless in Los Angeles.
I was just trying to crack a joke. I wasn't being serious. So yeah, we keep seeing these TV broadcasts, and eventually they start getting interrupted by someone who sounds like a nut job, of course, but given the movie's premise, you expect that he's actually the one who's sane and he's actually right about everything.
Right, yeah.
And he's like, we're interrupting this broadcast because they're everywhere. They're controlling us, and they're making us do whatever they want, and you have to wake up. And a lot of what he says still feels like, it still feels relevant. Like, he says things that are very broad about being controlled by capitalism and advertising and things like that. And like, they're already around us and they're controlling us, and we are their herd, and we are just, part of their livestock. That word's brought up a couple of times. Obviously the themes of the movie, it's about the rich elite and the people in control treating the population, and particularly the lower classes, and the idea that the middle class is starting to kind of like be blind to it and kind of like be seduced by it, and anyone who does get lucky enough like ends up becoming part of the problem, and like all these kind of ideas. So that these ideas are introduced, and the big thing here is that Roddy Piper kind of notices that the singing at the church across the street, which is what's being used as like a kitchen effectively, like that's where the people who run this place are going back to. It's like, that's weird, the choir's still singing at like 4 a.m. That's a bit odd. Like, they're very committed to their gospel. Very weird. And he gets a bit nosy, and he sneaks in and he finds like a bunch of sunglasses, and he's like, this is weird. And the blind like preacher man who we saw outside briefly before, kind of like talking about people taking control, and they're everywhere. He's saying very similar things. In fact, when the guy's on TV saying the stuff, he's mouthing it. He's actually saying the same thing along with it, like he's almost had a part in writing it or rehearsed it with them, or something to that effect.
Yeah, because it's clearly a live broadcast, but he was there for part of. I mean, but he knows exactly what the guy's going to say next, so clearly he's a part of it somehow.
Yeah, and what's interesting, and I love this in hindsight later on when you understand like the context of the story, but when he catches Roddy Piper sneaking around, and Roddy Piper's just wanting to know what's going on here. This is weird. This is not just a church.
He's just something's odd, and he's just investigating.
Basically, this is him starting to like realize that he's in the Matrix, right? If we're comparing it to the Matrix, this is him like starting to like follow the white rabbit. But he this blind man finds him, and the blind man like feels his face, and obviously that is a normal thing you hear about blind people doing, who they want to like recognize people so that they can't see them, so they feel their face, and that's how they know who's who in some way, and that's like a understandable thing that we get. But in context of later, it actually makes sense that what he's actually checking for is what the face feels like. Does it feel human? Because he's blind. Maybe that's how people discovered this in the first place. Maybe it was blind people who could tell the difference, and that kind of started the movement. Who knows? But Rowdy Piper runs away, and he kind of like, I think it's before this or after this that he's watching them with like a hawk with his binoculars, and Keith David's like, "Oh man, you're stirring up trouble. Like you're going to get us into trouble, and you're like, we all stay in our own lanes." And that's the big thing, is that the subliminal messages, the aliens, the media, they all want us to hate each other. They all want us not to trust each other and stay separate, so that we'll never like we'll never unionize. Basically, we'll never form a union and take them on and challenge them.
Those dreaded unions.
that's the idea.
Right. And I like that the line from him also, because it's basically like, don't start any trouble and just live your life and things will work out for you still. Like he still has that thought in mind.
And I kind of love that. Obviously, there's a friendship here, but I love that obviously Piper catches like little things and it gets him investigating, it gets him watching, and he checks out the church. But I love that Keith David effectively does the same thing with Piper, in that the scene where he notices Piper's like, he's sitting talking to like there's like a homeless man with a beard who's relevant because he pops up later, but he's sitting there and he's just mouthing off, and Keith David just looks over. Because he's sitting there like spouting conspiracy theories about stuff. It just sounds like nonsense for the most part. But he looks over and there's a scene. It's just there's shots of him watching Piper, because Piper looks very intent on something. Like he knows what he's doing. He's got some sort of mission. He's got his mindset in something. And Keith David, that's what makes Keith David go over and start talking to him. But then the second he realizes he's going to ruffle some feathers, he's like, "Oh no, we can't ruffle feathers. We have to work within the system. We have to play our role." And what I thought was a really poignant line here, which I don't think Keith David's race is necessarily brought up overtly too much, but there is a line here where he says he walks on the white line and stays out of trouble. And Piper's,
it does stand out.
It does stand out, and Piper's response is, "The white line's on the middle of the road. That's the worst place to be walking." And I'd argue it's probably equally as worse as just walking on the... Well, actually, no, it is the worst place to be walking. I was thinking of driving. Like, if you're driving on the wrong side, it's probably worse than driving in the middle. You get more of a chance of swerving out the way if you're already in the middle. But I was picking apart his metaphor. But if you're walking, it is probably the worst place, because you're right in between both lanes. Unless you're really skinny, in which case you might actually like have the narrow path, in which case you're dodging all traffic. I'm picking apart Piper's comeback, but I got what he meant. It was a fun line. It was a fun line. I know I'm making jokes and whatnot, but it was a fun line.
It was a fun line.
It was a fun line, like, the way. What? You come here for my stupid commentary, all right? I know I have some analysis occasionally, but I have stupid commentary as well that people seem to enjoy from time to time.
Well, I hope they're satisfied.
Narrator, because Tara was not. All right. So anyway, so this is what gets us into the meat and potatoes of the movie, is that night,
Tofu.
What was that?
Tofu and potatoes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yes, the vegan equivalent. Yes. You can just read that as like meat and potatoes, meaning like we're meat, so it's real. Us and potatoes because we eat potatoes.
True.
That's how you can read that. Not some juicy, I don't know, food with potatoes.
I just wanted to make sure that I did my part.
Yes. Or Kitty and potatoes if he hasn't stopped messing with it. I can see his tail. He's trying to sabotage that mic. I can see him.
He's been purring this whole time. I don't know. It's been really loud.
No,
It's just been picked up.
No, we're fine. So basically the powers that be, and it's mostly the police, but they seem like they have like an army as well at points. But they show up and storm this homeless camp, and they start just mowing. They're arresting people. They shoot some people.
They got like a bulldozer that just takes down all the camps.
And Piper is walking kind of calmly at first, but kind of gets in on it. And I said that David's race wasn't brought up overtly too much in the movie. There is definitely a moment here that felt very overt, and it's the blind man, who's a black man, A black blind priest, of all people. We see the police just beating up with a, it's not even just that one of them beats him up with a nightstick. It is, there's like 5 of them kind of try to get to him, and he's like swinging his cane to sort of keep them away from him, and they get to him and start beating them up. He's the most helpless person.
Right.
He does not need to be attacked. That felt very political, just that moment in and of itself, and Piper kind of like seeing this. And then I think that this here for me is a moment that I think is a really important moment for Piper's character in this, is that he sort of backs away and he notices that behind a corner there's like a sort of younger man who's kind of like cowering and scared. And I think everything up until this point, even though there's kind of a bond forming with Keith David, it's been very much...
He's been doing it all for himself.
Yeah, it's all been very, I'm a loner and I walk my own path, and like I don't help, I stay out of other people's ways, you stay out of my way. I think this is an important moment, because this is the moment where he puts out his hand and says, no, come with me, like you need help.
Yeah.
So
you were being oppressed and I'm going to take you away from that.
Yeah, he sees how awful this is, he sees how awful this activity is, and he's like, no, I can make a difference to this one person who's not surrounded yet, I'm going to do it. And he puts out his hand, and it's like it's very small relatively speaking, but it does feel like I think it's a big character moment that kind of like, it's okay, he's our hero, and we're going to like sort of follow his journey of discovery now, where he's going to really realize what's going on around him. He's been blind to it, and now he's going to see more of it.
Especially since he does a lot of murdering later on.
Yes. But like I think that's, you can sort of like make this an analogy for any kind of self-discovery you want. You can say this is someone discovering the treatment of homeless people, which is the more literal sense. You can say it's someone discovering how minorities are treated. You can say it's someone discovering how, whatever. Like it
just
works.
the facade that the police are there to protect you, to protect citizens.
So they run and hide. He gives the guy to some other people who are there to like, protect, and he kind of waits out the night and goes out that next day, and he steals a box of the sunglasses, right? He gets a box of them and runs, and he ends up in an alleyway, and he hides the box, the rest of them, but he takes one pair and he puts the one pair on, and he puts the pair on, and he looks down at the ground, and it's in black and white, and he's like, that's weird. And this is where the movie like the movie would probably still be a fun movie that people would like and talk about still, but it's this next like 40 minutes that's the linchpin, right?
Right.
So he's walking down the street and he's like seeing things in black and white, but then he looks up at a billboard, and when he puts on the glasses, it's not the billboard anymore. It's just like a plain white background that says, in bold black text, "Obey." He's like, that's weird, and he sort of does it a couple times, and then he looks at a second billboard, and I really like this one, and this is where I started pairing up the subliminal messages with the thing they're supposed to be, because the second one is like,
it's like a woman in a bikini on like a beach,
and it's like, and the advert's like, go on holiday with your loved one, go have a romantic getaway, and then he puts on the glasses, and it's like, marry and reproduce, or something to that effect, right?
I think that's what it says.
Or procreate. I think it was procreate. And it was like, oh yes, because it's good for you if there's a lot of poor people to, feed off of, and like spend their money, what little they have of it, on your products, and keep the system going. And
then there's like a closeout sale sign, and it just says like consume, just or purchase, or buy.
Consume's on the sale tag at the bottom. The actual store header, which was the clothes store, it was like don't think for yourself, like follow up, it was like, be a sheep and just buy the same brands as everyone else, and then the sale, 50% off or whatever was consume. Like,
I think my favorite is with the guy holding money, and then with the glasses it just says, "This is your god now."
On the money itself. Really, really good stuff. And then obviously,
like in case you didn't get the message yet.
And obviously eventually he gets like I don't know how long it's been since there's been a big magazine rack this big out in the street, because the internet's kind of changed things a little bit, but all the magazines, I almost wanted to pause it for a minute and just read all of them, because there's like tons of them on the screen at one time. But eventually this guy comes up who notably, he's in a very fancy suit. He's got a nice car. There's definitely a trend with the type of people who are not people. They're aliens. They're definitely the wealthy people. But you know, this guy's face, it's like a, I mean, they're aliens, but it's almost like a person with no skin, but in a slightly more cartoony way, right? It's like a cartoony skull with like flesh coming out and
yes,
big eyes.
It looks almost from like something from a while ago, and I think maybe because it's in black and white, it just evokes the Twilight Zone. But this is a very Twilight Zone image, and that might have been on purpose. I mean, I think the black and white also just evokes like we're taking the glamour away from everything and just showing you what it truly is in black and white.
Yeah, and black and white, literally.
But I think it also, I think having that like Twilight Zone recognition helps with these masks that the aliens, well, that the costume is that these actors are wearing, also just look a bit more terrifying. Yeah,
it gives it this eeriness that is just a little bit surreal, and I think that it does make you feel like you've walked into a Twilight Zone almost, right? It gives you that kind of vibe, and there's definitely a pulpiness to it, but and they're kind of ridiculous, but they're meant to be ridiculous. It's kind of like, wait, they've been walking around and like this?
They look like this and we haven't noticed? Yeah.
Yeah. So, really, really interesting stuff. Like, he looks creepy, he's sort of staring back at him, and Piper's like just trying to process this thought. He's almost like in shock. He's like a zombie. He doesn't really know what to think, and he just kind of stumbles around. And
he's just staring at the guy, and the guy's just like, "What the hell's your problem?"
And he starts seeing more.
Poor person. I don't deserve to look at me.
It's not everyone, obviously. He sees like a rich woman who is an alien, but she's got like two friends who are handing bags, and they're humans though. So it's very clear that there's people who have like given in to them, but they're not aliens themselves. They're sort of being the B tier of rich people to like feed off of them,
right?
Kind of thing.
They're the ones that are they still benefit from being around them, but their lives will never be the same as the people who are the aliens who are actually on top.
Yeah, and honestly, like, obviously there's the famous line, the bubblegum line, but that's not my favorite line in the movie. My favorite line in the movie is about to come up. So he goes into a supermarket, and he's like, not everyone, but there's a lot of people in the supermarket who are aliens, and he's kind of stumbling around. And again, this is another one where if you pause it, you can see on all the products like different messages. But he gets into an altercation with a woman, and she's like, "Oh, what's your problem, buddy?" And he's like, he takes the glasses on and off, and he looks at another woman, and he's like, "You're really ugly." And he turns to this other woman who's not an alien and goes, "Now you're all right, but you're really effing ugly." And I popped for this line. This was a really funny line to me, partly because it's like a really blunt and like rude thing to say, but because he's not actually talking about, I mean, he is technically, because like he's seen a physical appearance, but in the allegory of the film, it's saying, "You're a filthy, leeching rich person who makes everyone else's life miserable. You are ugly."
Yeah.
Right? That's just effectively what he's saying. So there's layers to it, but it's just really his delivery.
Well, yeah, it comes up again when he's talking to like the really attractive woman who's like checking her hair in the mirror and stuff. But then he sees her and like he's like putting perfume on a pig.
Yeah, he says something with that. Yeah, but like I think his delivery of that joke is way better than the bubblegum line.
Totally.
It's a perfect delivery. So yeah, all that stuff is great, and it takes a bit of time. It doesn't, like, this movie does not rush its moments. Like, it spends time having him stumble through the street, and the music's really good, and it's kind of this eerie. But there's times when there's no music, and it just lets the sound of the city or the sound of the.
Yeah, I actually really liked just turning your ears on to hear all the little things that are being said in the distance, or just all the aliens when they talk, and the women are talking about these Lamaze classes. Can you believe she didn't do Lamaze, like for the baby's sake? And it's just all this talk about excess and just being wealthy and looking down on the poor, and the woman who bumps into him and just like, "Oh, excuse me," the one that's the really effing ugly one.
Yeah, you don't have your water flown in from Nepal, and then purified through 5 filters of like herbal essences and
right. Meanwhile, this guy, this blue collar guy is really it's just trying to find a place to sleep at night. and all the commercials and stuff that you hear, or the news people in the background are always they're also really good to hone in on.
I think the first one we see is like an interview with an actress who's talking about how much she needs everyone to love her. It's like, oh, I'm on TV and everyone loves me because I'm so beautiful, and it's like just this vapid. But
it's also like selling the dream of like anybody can be like me, if you work hard and if you really want it, which is not true.
Yeah. You can either be very, very, very lucky. You can work hard and also be very lucky in combination. But you can also work hard and not be lucky and still not do it. You can also just not be lucky at all.
Well, it's also of course there's going to be people who are lucky and people who deserve it. But the thing with capitalism is that if you have the ones that are really successful, you're always going to have the ones that aren't. So there's no, obviously, I mean, there's a lot in the middle, but like for every rich person, you have to have losers for every winners, right? So that is the big lie that they're also selling.
Yeah, about, I don't know, what would you say, 99 for everyone? Something like that?
Something like that, yeah.
Something in that range. That's not true. Maybe it's like 1, and then the middle class is like another 3, and then 90,
and then everyone else.
Yeah, then 96. Everyone else is the poor. Yeah, something like that. I'm sure there's actual statistics. Like wherever this 1% figure came from, I'm sure there's also a percentage of the other levels. But
they're the ones that can buy themselves into being astronauts and presidents, and then there's everyone else.
Are you thinking of someone specific there, Tara?
No. You're just spitballing.
Yeah. Sounds like a real bozo, wherever he is. So, yeah, no, that stuff is great. And he, obviously he freaks out, and because he refers to like seeing like her ugly face, she gets her watch. They've all got communicators in the watch, and they're like, we've got someone who can see us. He can see. He's here. So all of a sudden the police, and obviously I think it's interesting that the first couple of police that like hunt him down are aliens. But then he runs into
and they're open about it too. Like, we know you can see us, so
they'll try to trick him. Like, oh, we can go somewhere quiet and talk. No, you're going to take him somewhere and snuff him. But it is interesting though that he does run into a police officer after that who isn't an alien, who's been given orders to apprehend him because it looks like he's murdering people, right? Because on the outside, that's what it looks like. It looks like he's murdering people, but he makes him drop his gun, but he's like, no, you can go. I'm not going to get you. Just run away. Like, I'm not going to kill you. You're not like.
Yeah, I think that was a good choice to show that like it doesn't. Not everybody in the in law enforcement is the ones that are doing the oppression, but they are being influenced and controlled by the ones who are.
Yeah. They're still following the orders that are so yeah. But I like. But yeah, this scene where the 2 cops get him in the alleyway and he just kind of has to fight back. Like, this is the only time he can. I mean, he kind of flips Keith David at one point, but he does clothesline one of the cops. This is like the only time they sort of snuck in like a wrestling move.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, it's just all punch and kicky. But he gets the gun. He's like, oh, you died just the same then. So he like grabs like a shotgun and like. It almost feels like, to the public, this would feel like, oh, there's a shooter on the loose because he's just killed police. And
he's the crazy guy.
Yeah, because he ends up stumbling into like a bank, and that's where he drops the bubblegum line because they all turn and look at him, and that's where he says it. And then he runs into the police officer, who he lets go, and then he kidnaps business lady. It's actually, Joe, it's almost like, it makes me think of Commando. It's like when Arnold's like sneaking around the mall in Commando, and he ends up like saying, all right, I'm commandeering your vehicle, miss. It's kind of like that, except in this case it's business lady. From
Leviathan lady.
Leviathan, yes.
Holly's
Who's
also business lady there.
Who's also what?
Who's also business lady in Leviathan. She's business lady in both. I guess she's kind of typecast as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because she's got like a sterner face with like the big 80s hair, so she fits
it's those
that.
eyes, man, they're so cold. I mean, they're beautiful, but like they are icy blue.
Yeah, she reminds me of, actually, she looks a lot like what's her name?
She looks like Julia from Hellraiser to me.
Oh, I can see that.
I watch those movies.
No, I'm thinking of the woman who was the villain in Sabrina. She was also the villain in Doctor Who. You know what I'm talking about? The Scottish actress.
I don't know her name, but
you know
in
what I'm
the
talking
TV
about.
show,
Yeah,
in the Netflix show, yeah.
Oh yeah, not the 90s one. The Netflix one. She's like the evil teacher, or well, she takes over the evil. She's an evil person who takes over the teacher's body, technically.
She's oh, I guess it's a spoiler to say who she is.
Yeah. But you know, like, it's just, I think she looks a lot like her. Actually, she looks like an 80s version of her. But yeah, and obviously, like, she's like saying, I don't really want to take you back to my place. He's like, well, it's the only place that's good to hide, so take me to your. And
yeah, he knows that she's human because he's wearing the glasses.
Yeah, and she has this ridiculous hill or house that's got the, you know, it's on the hill, so there's big stilts at the back to hold it up on the thing, which
she's very successful. Yeah.
Very successful. I'll be honest though, it looks like, see when you actually look under that and you go, this actually doesn't look like. This looks less safe than I would like it to. I'm sure it is. I'm sure from an engineering point of view, I'm sure they know what they've done. But
I mean, there's so many houses like that here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's not like they don't. They're not in danger of a mudslide or landslide or earthquakes. You know.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
And this does introduce the idea that there's very successful people who are not aliens, right? There's still people who are like that, and. This may be the funniest thing in the movie, to be honest.
This thing catches me so off guard.
Yeah, this is insane, and it's a sort of thing where it's kind of a B movie, so you kind of like, they're having fun, just roll with it. But she like, there's a couple of funny moments where he's kind of like, it looks like he's falling asleep, and she's sort of going to like make a move, and he's like, "Don't try me, lady." He's like, but basically, like, there's a phone call that lets us know that she works at the TV station, where the, you know, all these like broadcasts we're seeing are.
Yeah, she just tells him. He asks her what she does.
But she takes an opportunity at one point to hit him over the head with like a bottle or a vase or something like that. And then she just, surprisingly easily, like,
pushes him out the window.
Yeah, she like pushes him and elbows him or whatever, and he just goes flying out the window like he's just been, it's like he's just been like drop kicked by a wrestler. That's how it looks.
The window's
like.
not open. It's
no.
He just shatters through the glass.
It's a big glass, open window design, right? So this entire wall is just like a window, and just one big panel of it just smashes, and he goes flying out of it and lands in the hill, or lands in the bushes.
She does catch him off guard. I mean, myself included. I was kind of like, what just happened? I had to rewind it.
I mean, I'm totally fine.
I felt like I missed something, or that, like, is she like an alien who's like not
super strength?
Did she have like super strength? I was confused by the scene.
Yeah, I have no problem with her catching him off guard and hitting him over the head. It was just like, she's strong enough to just, because she made it look easy. It looked like an easy push. It just looked like, I was like, I would, if this was my house and someone like fell out the window that easily, I'd be like, hey, I want some reinforced glass on these, but I don't want to just.
And then she calls like a 911 or something afterward, and she's cool, she's calm about it, like, no biggie. I just threw him out the window.
Did you know your own strength? Is this like normal for you?
Yeah.
If anything, this makes Leviathan's knockout punch more impressive. Peter Weller, like, man, he didn't know the behemoth he was coming up against when he swung
Seriously.
that. So that's great stuff. But it does a little tease here where his sunglasses were left on the floor, and it's like, oh, maybe she's going to put them on, and it cuts. And we don't see her again for a while, so it's like, oh, maybe she's going to like discover what he was like paranoid about and what he was talking about.
Yeah, because he was trying to tell her, like, there's something going on here.
Yeah, so he goes to the work site, and we've not seen Keith David in a little bit ever since the raid on the homeless camp. But Keith David like sees him hiding like behind some like boxes or something, and he comes over. He's like, "What are you doing here? You're all over the news. You murdered like five people. Like, get away."
I'm surprised he wants anything to do with it.
Yeah. and he tells him to get away. He can't have anything to do with him. But when Piper goes back to this alleyway to reflect the rest of the glasses, well, actually, before Keith David shows up, he actually has a fun little adventure in the in the garbage truck.
Yeah.
There's actually something really silly and funny about the fact that he effectively empties the entire truck as it's driving away. So I can just imagine these garbage guys like getting to like the next stop, going to the back and be like, oh shit, it's empty. Because the alleyway's just covered in trash. Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
But he gets his box of glasses back. Don't worry, the movie's saved. He gets his box back. But Keith David shows up, and Keith David clearly sees what he's just done, because he comes like walking out of this pile of trash on the ground
with the sunglasses.
Yeah, and Keith David like throws him a wad of cash and says, "That's a week's pay. It's the best." And it's like, oh, this is actually kind of sweet of him. Like, he doesn't even know why he killed anyone. He's willing to give him a week's pay to go and like hide somewhere. Like, hey, here's a week's pay. Go and hide. That's the best I can do. But Piper's like, man, you gotta put these glasses on. And Keith David apparently just really doesn't like sunglasses, because he, like, you would think just to shut him up, he would just put them on for a second.
I mean, I sort of thought of it as maybe he's just so resistant to challenging the status quo because he's afraid.
That's what it represents.
He's afraid of having the truth revealed to him.
That's what it represents. I get what you're saying, yeah.
But it does go on a long time.
This fight, and it is just like a fist fight where they'll fight for like 30 seconds to a minute, they'll throw some punches, and then Piper will say again, put them on, man. And he's like, nah. And there's so many like fun little bits to this where, like, you know, like he'll go for his balls, and Keith David's like, you dirty mother effer, and like he'll like punch him, and they'll start fighting more dirty. He threatens to like stand in the glasses at one point. He's like, no, and then he just like, he uses the distraction to knee him in the face. Like, they're throwing hard punches. Like, they're throwing.
Yeah, and there's no music playing during this, so it is very just, you're just watching and listening to two people like beat the crap out of each other, and it is. It looks like it's a lot for them also, because they take breaks like every 30 seconds to talk, and they're like. They really look like they're worn out.
Oh yeah, and I think that's actually something that adds to the fight, because you get to the end of like each section and they're so tired, and they're like, all right, man, you ready to call it and just put the glasses on, you prick? Is it time?
Nope.
It's like, nope. And it's like, they just start throwing punches again. But the fact that there's no music, it's like the sound of them grunting and punching and being out of breath, it just makes it all feel like absurdly real. But at the same time, it's also absurd that they're fighting this long over putting on a pair of glasses.
Yeah.
But it's kind of wonderful.
Put my tinfoil hat on.
It's like really well shot and feels really hard hitting, so it's really good. And then it goes on so long that you start to think, maybe this is going on too long. But then it goes on so long that it comes back around to, this is wonderfully absurd how long this is lasting.
Right.
That's the sequence of events and the fight scene.
Yeah, you're wore out after watching it.
Oh yeah. I'm like, damn.
I think I've just been through a fight.
But eventually, Keith David's down on the ground. Piper's got the winning blow, and he grabs the glasses, he puts them on his face, and basically just like makes him look around, and he's like sort of black and white, and he gets him like at least far enough down the alleyway, and he's sort of holding. He's almost holding him up like he's like a zombie, like just holding him up in his arms. And he starts to see, he sees like a person at the end of the alleyway who like turns and looks down at them, and is an alien, and he's like, what the, you know, he's like completely freaked out by it. And then, you know, that's them. They're brothers in arms. Now he's seeing the truth, and they're walking down the street side by side, and he's like, damn, like this is, and you know, and this effectively ends the amazing section of the movie, which is the discovery, the putting on the glasses, the badass like murder spree, if you want to call it that, and then the Keith David like fight. Like this is just a wonderful portion of the film that is just, and it's not at the first half hour or the last half hour or whatever it works out to be. It's not they're bad. They're actually very well done and solid and fun. But that middle section, Jesus, is just perfect.
Yep.
And obviously also the woman just like nudging him slightly, and him just smashing through the window like it's like this force.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
It's wonderful.
Yeah, I mean the fight scene is really, it's really rough to watch. I don't really enjoy watching real violence, and this really comes off as real violence.
I don't like real violence either. I kind of appreciate. It's kind of weird because I actually watch wrestling, and obviously wrestling is like it's a show. It's predetermined, and they're putting on a show.
People do get hurt though, yeah.
But people do get hurt, and sometimes to spice it up a little bit, they'll let each other, like, you know, do not a punch, like, because that would actually really do damage if they punch someone in the face for real. But like they'll do, like, you know, really harsh like chops, like slaps in the chest, because it makes a really good sound, right? But sometimes when you see that, like at the end of the match, like their chests are just red, and they've given consent, like they're okay doing this to each other. They've agreed to do this for the show, and they but so I'm okay with it to an extent because they've made that choice. They're consenting adults, and they know what they're doing, and they know that that's a safe place to hit because it's not going to cause any damage, right? It'll hurt, but it's not, you know, it's just like this. You said
the wind
like,
gets knocked out of him though.
Yeah, but like you said, like the faces and the crotch were off limits for a reason, because that's the like
right.
the head's a sensitive
I mean, Keith
area.
David does get like body slammed onto the concrete at one point. It looks pretty rough. It looked very wrestling also.
I almost wonder if this came from Piper, who, because he does come from wrestling, he probably brought a little bit of the, no, let's just like have a fight for like 10 minutes and let's like sort of like put on like something that feels, and because it's a movie, they can actually make it more convincing because they get to have cuts and they get to have multiple takes or whatever. But I almost imagine him going up to Keith David and being like, hey, this would be really good if we, like,
you're a big guy, I'm a big guy,
let's slap each other around a little bit.
Have a big guy fight.
And Keith David, I imagine, being a little proud, and maybe he's really enthusiastic, but at the very least he was proud enough to go, yeah, I can take it, yeah, well, yeah, let's do it.
Maybe. Man,
let's slap some beef. That's the beefy man slapping beef. That's what this was.
Yeah, it was a good scene. And I don't think that the movie goes like downhill or anything. It's not as exciting as that middle part.
Yeah, because it's still fun. Like there's a little bit of, it quietens down a little bit as they wait at a hotel. The guy who was running the camp before shows up and is like, okay, you guys are in now. You know what's going on. Come to this address where we're arranging stuff, because this was an organization. They were making these glasses, and then when they get to this like meeting, they've got contact lenses now. So fair enough. But when he's there, they've got some insider knowledge about how to get to the TV station, and he turns around, and who is it? None other than Leviathan lady. Holly's there.
Yep.
And I love how we were probably the only people who refer to her in this as Leviathan lady. And it's when most people, if they watch Leviathan, probably go, "Oh, it's They Live lady."
Probably.
That's what most people do, but we're doing it the other way around because we're weirdos. So they've got a plan. They want to turn off the signal. They think if they can turn off this signal that's been beamed around, it'll wake everyone up. So the movie's goal is basically to just make everyone aware that this is what the world is, and
it's
then,
about enlightenment. Yes.
Yeah, and the world can sort itself out from there, hopefully. Although people are pretty convinced that, are pretty good at convincing themselves of things, as the world has taught us over the last, well, forever.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we'll talk about that more when we get to the ending and how it ends exactly. But this has also been established throughout the film that there is some sort of signal that's been going around that keeps people, they call them asleep, but I think it's just the opposite of being awake, like being enlightened. That people are just sort of zombie-like and following the orders, of all the rules.
Hence the title, They Live. We sleep, they live. Yeah,
exactly. I also think of it like they live, like only the 1% are the ones that actually are able to have a real life.
Yeah, sure, yeah. That works too, yeah. So, no, this was actually the part of it, because just to sort of go along with this, like, all of my memories of this movie were the premise, the glasses, the fight, what the glasses did. Like, this lasts like 25 minutes, where like so the army storms this meeting, a lot of them die, and the only reason why our heroes get away and get to like somewhere interesting is because they've got one of their watches. Like at this like meeting, they've stolen some of these magic watches they've got, which apparently have goddamn teleportation tech in them.
Well, we see one of the aliens like disappear at one point, and we're like, "What? They can do that?"
And sure enough, like they don't know how to turn it on properly, but the watch gets damaged, and it's got like a safety feature where it makes like a little portal to their base so you can get away since it's broken. So they both jump out of the portal, which lands them in a secret underground system which the aliens are controlling that's doing it. And I'd forgotten all of this. I'd forgotten how like hardcore sci-fi this gets. There's like a teleportation like transit system which is taking people to Andromeda. And not only that, the alien, when they walk in the big ballroom and it's like a fancy, it's what was it called? Mar-a-Lago? What was the place I'm thinking of?
Yeah, it's some sort of like Mar-a-Lago, or it looks like a ballroom that's been used for some sort of like Scientology conference.
Yeah, but it's all tuxedos and expensive dresses, and it's basically the alien on stage is like telling, like, and the assumption is that most of these people are actually, well, not some of them are definitely aliens, but some of them aren't, and it's like, no, our alliance together, we're controlling the world, and they say by 2025 we'll control absolutely everything. I'm like, oh, okay, we're almost there, guys. Like, we got to keep an eye on this. Things are getting bad. And it's like, I'd forgotten all of this stuff. Like, I'd really forgotten all this. I didn't know
anything about this because, I mean, I haven't seen this movie, but I've seen all the clips, like, from most of that middle chunk of the film before. So this was all new to me. This is the first time for me. And yeah, it was quite bizarre.
Yeah, and you can feel them just having fun with this. Like, the homeless guy from earlier shows up and he's in a tux and he's got a clean goatee now as opposed to the big bushy beard, and he's like, oh, you two guys have joined up now too. Yeah, it's great. Yes, isn't it great being rich and like can do anything we want and all the rest of it? And
yeah, just another commentary about how people would be if people are just willing to be submissive in order to succeed in this world that is very unfair.
Yeah, if they get let in, all of a sudden they'll stop complaining about the powerful and rich because now they're one of them, and that's it.
Right.
You've been indoctrinated. Yeah. So he gives them a tour, and we see the transit system. We see a couple of places, but they get to like basically the bottom of the TV studio, where the TV actual studio where they shoot this news program is. And what's funny is he actually gets to like disappear. He doesn't die. This goatee guy, when they turn on him, he uses his watch and he gets away. So he's actually free and clear. But they storm into the TV studio. They've got their guns. They're like, where's Holly? Let's find Holly. Well, Piper's like that. Keith David's like, who's Holly? What Holly? Holly who? But
I mean, he was really impressed at her strength. So
that's true.
That's it for him now.
Well, he did talk. But
she does apologize to him. Like, I didn't know.
Well, that's the scene where, I mean, because it's a movie, there's kind of a love interest vibe the first time they meet anyway, even though it's under that weird duress. But this is the scene where they talk to each other before the army storm in is like the actual sexual tension scene where they're like, I'm so sorry, like, I didn't know, like, and like they're sort of staring at each other. There's all these awkward pauses, like the sexual tension.
I didn't buy it for a second though.
I buy that he wanted her. Like, I mean, I admit,
maybe it's because of Leviathan, but I didn't trust her.
No, I agree. I think the twist that she is actually working in is complicit with the aliens is super obvious. However, I think the way it's revealed, and it's just a simple thing. It's the speed of which she turns on Keith David and the quickness of the edit.
Yeah, that was like a really brutal thing. Like, oh.
She just pulls out a gun and points at his head, and it cuts away with the sound of a gunshot so quickly. It's the way the edit is so quick that it felt quite shocking. Even though the twist of her being a bad guy is not shocking, but the way that they do it felt really shocking.
Just like, just there's no speech. There's nothing there. It's just a quick turn, bang into his skull. Like it almost makes you want to like turn away because you're like, oh, I don't want to. It's so quick and like you don't want to see it.
It feels awful. It feels like someone that we've grown to care about throughout the film just get taken away in the blink of an eye. And
just like that.
It's genuinely quite shocking, especially I think at this point because it feels like such a fun, cool movie, like we've been saying, that it doesn't feel like it's a fun B movie. Our two leads aren't in danger. They're the heroes, at least until the end, and it is actually like right before the end anyway. But you know, it's such a shocking, like, quick death that it's like, oh, right? And then she goes up and she holds Piper at gunpoint, and he gets the better of her, shoots her, and says, yeah, F it. And, you know, even though he's going to get mowed down by the helicopter, it doesn't matter. He shoots the satellite, and the end of the movie is that we see everyone around the world sees the aliens for what they really are, and for the first time we see them in color, which is a nice touch because it looks even more silly. And they all start freaking out. They see the messages on the wall, and they don't even notice them. But if you're paying attention as the viewer, you can see in the background, like the posters and stuff and whatever, have all turned to just whatever the messages were. And the final moment of the movie that it chooses to end on, which is a very obviously intentionally kind of silly, funny moment, is a couple having sex, maybe even a prostitute. I was kind of unclear what the scenario was, but where there's a woman on top, and we
just see her,
yeah,
and her fantastic breast.
Yeah, fantastic breast, and she's not looking down. She's just, you know, she's doing the job.
I think she's distracted because everything's changing around her.
Yeah, but she looks at the TV, sees like an alien, and goes, "Huh, that's weird," and then looks down, screams, and the final line of the movie is the alien with the weird alien face going, "What's the matter, honey?" cut to credits.
Yeah, pretty funny. I like the idea that the movie ends with, okay, now the world has the information, has the truth. What happens from here? Like, and you can kind of speculate, like, would we want to continue business as usual? I don't know.
I think the metaphor at the end, just in the final moment, I really like. But wouldn't it be even better if she wasn't on top? Because, you know, she's literally being screwed by the people at the top. Right?
Missed opportunity, Carpenter.
I don't know. I feel like it's still kind of there because she's still having sex with him, but like,
yeah,
you know, like it would have been funnier. I think, you know, one of the things that I like, you know, we obviously mentioned the black and white scenes and how good they look. I think I love like how it's used at various points. See when they're like fighting off the army with the guns, when the base is being stormed before they jump through the portal. There's like, as they were just in this gunfight in the alleyway, every so often it'll just cut to like a quick shot of black and white to see the aliens. Like it just,
yeah, and the reflection in the eyes are like really cool and intimidating.
Yeah.
Or during those moments,
it's
almost like, yeah, like they're it's like you're playing a Call of Duty game or something, but against the monsters.
Yeah, I mean, it's way cooler than that. Call of Duty has no atmosphere. You kidding me? It's just bros with guns. Yeah, shooty, bang, bang.
I think I remember one of them I played was kind of good.
I mean, I don't know why I shout
it was a while ago.
But I don't think that has what this has, which is this surreal thing where when it turns to black and white for a moment, where it just feels like it gives it this flavor that most like gunfights don't have.
Yeah, and I also found that I was kind of longing for it because we go a long time without seeing what they're seeing.
Yeah, well, because
show us more of the aliens.
Because they've
like
got
who it is and who isn't.
Because they've got the contacts in. Basically, at this point, Carpenter can just choose whenever he wants to switch to it because they don't have to have the glasses on anymore.
Yeah.
So that's it. Which, by the way, the guy who runs the group, right, or at least this city's section of this group that are trying to fight back. When they storm the base and he like sort of makes a stand with his one gun, then the army like mow him down. Like he gets riddled, like RoboCop style, with bullets.
Just extra cruel.
Yeah, because they're cruel. It's not just about keeping order. It's about, you know, making a statement. It's about being in control and having the power, and all the rest.
Yeah,
of
you
it.
don't matter.
Yeah, so. Yeah, so I think to sort of return to something we said way back in Spoiler Free, comparing it to the Matrix, like, there's definitely a little bit of that. Like, you can almost like swap out the Matrix code for the subliminal like messages and stuff like that. You could say the police and that are like the agents, kind of running down after anyone who's been woken up, kind of thing. And the ultimate goal at the end of the movie is to wake everyone up. Like, you know, there's definitely some parallels, you know?
Sure. I think even just the idea of being stuck in a machine that you don't realize you're a part of, and is an idea in both films.
Yeah, waking up. That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
They refer. I mean, obviously, it's not literally sleeping in this, but they metaphorically refer to it as sleeping. Hence, they live. And in the Matrix, it is literally you're waking up from the this fake world. So a lot of parallels. Now, The Matrix is a better movie, don't get me wrong, but They Live is pretty damn good.
I would say so too, yeah.
And it's a lot of fun. It's definitely got a B-movie vibe. It's definitely got, you know, it's not intricate lead characters, but I think there's maybe like almost like a strategical genius move by having blue-collar B-movie, just cool badass hero as your lead in a movie that has a relatively like not nuanced, but like deep message, you know, like, I mean, it's on the surface, don't get me wrong, it's not deep in the sense that you have to go digging for it, but it's a very, you know, it's a big message, it's a very political message that it's saying a lot about a lot of society, so it's got big ideas and big things to say. But at the center of your story, you have muscly Roddy Piper.
Yeah, sort of
with
somebody that I think a lot of like the conspiracy theorists imagine they are anyway, like the gun wielding, hard worker, construction worker, probably drives a big truck with a flag on the back of it or something. You know, I think it's really interesting casting, very good casting, and intentional to have somebody like that in the lead role.
Yeah, and the idea of waking up and realize that you're kind of part of like the people in charge's plan, like to be held at this level and to never, you know. So there's a lot of good stuff there. They
tell you there's a dream that everybody has,
but it's not
the same fair shot.
And I think it's important as well that I don't think it in any way is belittling anyone. It's not.
No.
It's not being mean to people who maybe don't think about the world this way. It's not being mean to anyone. It's sort of just saying it's important for more people to wake up and realize and sort of see the world for how it is.
No, you can't really blame people, you know. It's like I've had a lot of people blame people for being like obese and overweight, or like it's their fault they have diabetes and stuff, and it's like, but it's not, because they're just surrounded by signs that say eat everywhere, and food is like designed to be so addictive, and like it's literally designed by a scientist to have the right level of crunch and salt and sugar and fat, so that like how can you blame anybody for eating too much? Like food is so different from what it used to be. I know it's kind of out there as an example, but like it's just something that popped to mind. But like you can't always blame people for not knowing that they're being tricked and fooled and lied to.
I like the idea, and I suppose this is true for anyone, really, in the sense that if you are thinking about these things, that you are kind of seeing these things for what they are. But I do love the idea that the Tara walks around and does just see the word "eat" on like anything that's like the McDonald's sign is just "eat."
Yeah. It's true. Like I was thinking about that like years ago when I like dramatically changed how I ate and was trying to be very healthy, and just all the commercials were just like burgers with cheese and ketchup like dripping off of them, and the soda commercials that would come up and before the movies and stuff, and get the candy, and it's just, for me, it's just like eat. That's all I see.
I mean, I definitely got an ad for soy milk yesterday, so they're not all super bad.
Sure,
unhealthy.
I understand. Yeah. Did it make you want to get soy milk?
Honestly, the color of it and a couple of the clips made me not want it, because I'm like, that doesn't look like milk.
Yeah, it's slightly grayer.
Yeah, that's not the right color. What are you doing? Stop it.
I love soy milk. I love it. I have a soy milk addiction.
Yeah.
But only the vanilla flavored ones.
Oh, sure. I think this is obviously a fun, almost cheesy in places intentionally, B movie, but even this has, you know, when people, like when I hear people who get mad like at modern media for being too SJW or sensitive or being pandering, and I'm like, all good stories have messages in them, and this is an example of something from the 80s that is good, cheesy, well made but cheesy fun, but does have a lot of messaging in it, and that's kind of part of its charm. I think that's maybe even part of the joke of the movie in a way, is that you try to give this message to people in a type of movie that you wouldn't think of as having this type of strong message. You're giving them the fast food movie to expose the fast food of the society, if you will. Like, you know, it's just it's like getting a Big Mac, but then you open your Big Mac and it's like, here's a what's a really good vegan thing, Tara?
I like a Beyond Burger.
Well, that's not, you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to think.
Well, you bite into it and you just bite into enlightenment.
No, I'm trying to conjure an image of, you know, when you open a book and someone's like cut out something so that they can hide like a, you know, in like Shawshank, it's like a little digger. Like, I'm thinking like you open a Big Mac up and there's actually like a hole where like a I don't know, an avocado or something.
I see.
Just to pick the millennial.
I see the metaphor now.
Yeah, just to pick the millennial trope of a fruit.
There's an avocado toast inside here.
Yeah. Yes. It's not, I don't know if that's the silliest thing I could think of, but that's what my main want to.
I like it.
But yeah. So that's fun. It's slick. It's cool. Music, the visuals. I mean, it's not necessarily the best sounding Carpenter movie or the best looking Carpenter movie, but it's a super fun one, and I do think it belongs in his category of good movies by, you know, a considerable margin. So
totally.
I like it a lot. It is a blast of a time, and it's like 90 minutes. It's
an easy watch.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, and you know, I feel like on Screams and Sacred Hockey Mask, I get a lot of easy rides. I mean, they're not, because a lot of them are bad movies, but they're usually at least short, and it's rare when I see something that's over 2 hours. But we do a lot of 2 hour plus movies on this show. We
do. We did like a 5-hour movie once.
We did, yes. Which I didn't believe Tara. I thought she was just joking because it was nearly 3 hours long, and it turned out.
You thought I was being hyperbolic.
Well, no, because
I don't want to watch the movie. It's like 5 hours.
To be fair, on IMDb it said like 3 hours because that was the theatrical cut. I did not realize the version that we were going to watch was the extended director's cut, which was almost 5 hours long. Right, that's the difference.
Right. Yeah.
Right. The movie we were referring to, just in case you want to go track down a review or the movie itself, is called Until the End of the World.
It was quite good.
It actually was quite good. But it is a slow burn, as you may expect. Almost
it's very
5
different
hours.
from this film.
Yes. That said, better than all the Lord of the Rings films, so, you know, take that as you will.
I disagree.
I think you'll find it. Probably is. Now, Tara, what would you rate They Live?
You know, I'm kind of torn because I just hate Ronald Reagan so much that I really want to give this movie like a really high rating.
11.
Because this is totally up my alley. This movie. There are some things that make me get, I don't want to say bored, but like a little less interested at points. But and like not all the acting is great, but I do think it's very good. So I'm teetering between like an 8.5 and a 9.
Whoa.
Which is pretty high, I know.
Yeah, that shouldn't.
But I really, really love it. All right, I'll just go for the 9. Great film. Great job.
Damn, I was not expecting quite that. I'm actually.
I think this movie like was kind of made for me.
I'm going to sound negative by comparison. I'm going to give it a straight 8, which is going to sound negative compared to that. But I like this better than the first time I watched it, and I think it's great. I think it's a great movie. 8 out of 10.
Maybe the next time you watch it, we'll go up a little bit. Who knows? I
think I've solidified. But you know, I'm comparing it to other Carpenter films. Like I've got like a hierarchy in my head where this is Risen for sure.
Yeah.
But
I mean, honestly, I think this movie just speaks to me.
Okay.
Love it.
Okay. Maybe one day when I end up doing top 10 Carpenter, you can guess and give your own for comparison's sake.
I just love it, especially because there's so many movies around this time that were like that were very based around Reaganomics and praising Ronald Reagan for the America that he's bringing. And so it's nice to see a movie from this time that's like, no, he's the reason for a lot of shit, a lot of bullshit in the country and in the world.
Oh, it's worth mentioning, despite the fact that you've brought his name up quite a number of times, it's never mentioned, I don't think.
No, but the president in the film that you see, who is an alien on TV, like uses Ronald Reagan's catchphrase.
Oh,
like,
sure.
It's morning in America.
It's definitely baked into it. I'm just, you know, I can almost see like some idiot comment, like just being like, "Why did you keep talking about Ronald Reagan? Ronald Reagan's never mentioned in the movie."
Well, that person's an idiot, so.
I know, but you know, I like to say it, so at least if that comment is made and other people see that comment, they know that we've made fun of them even before they made their comment, and that makes it, because I mean, someone who makes that comment probably won't finish the whole episode. I would expect. I could be wrong, and we're right at the end now, so they may not see this part.
Hey, they might also agree that this movie's a 9.
They might, but hey, that's fine. Some people love great movies for wrong reasons, and that's okay. So there you go. That is They Live. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to make Tara pose for the thumbnail at this juncture.
I don't have any sunglasses, so just make my eyes like real big and put me in black and white.
Okay. You have no sunglasses, so black and white it is.
You can have the sunglasses.
Yeah.
I'll be the alien.
I mean, I don't think I have actual sunglasses, but I have like 3D glasses from the movie theater, which will look good enough.
Just superimpose them. You can do that. You have Photoshop.
Oh, sure. I mean, look, it's Scotland, all right? There's not as much need for sunglasses. All right. 3, 2, 1. Pose. Oh, man.
Pretty good, huh?
There's going to be, like, people are going to be calling this clickbait with that pose. Jeez.
Hot.
Yeah. Also, but I also wear glasses all the time, so wearing sunglasses has like never been something I've even thought of doing, because it's just like, I know you can get ones that fit over or attach, but it's just, I already wear glasses all the time. So
I live in Southern California. I never wear sunglasses. I just squint.
Sure. Okay. I'm just justifying, because you give me this face like, oh, you have 3D glasses but not sunglasses, like some sort of weirdo.
I mean, that is weird.
How's that weird?
Having a pair of 3D glasses, like the red and blue ones, or
no, the black ones from like modern movies.
I don't own any films that come with glasses.
Nor do I. They're from the movie theater. You buy them when you go to see a 3D movie, and then you keep them for the next time you need them.
Oh no, we don't have that here.
You're looking like I'm like a crazy person.
Yeah, we don't have that here for 3D films. You're supposed to put them in the bin when you're done.
You don't give them back. You keep them your pair. They're your pair.
No, that's not a thing here.
So you have to wear glasses that other people have used? Oh, that's gross.
Yeah, they've been like disinfected.
Yeah, that's what they say.
I mean, it's not that gross to wear glasses of someone else's. I mean, that they've worn for like a 2-hour period.
Yeah, but think of the weirdos.
I mean, I don't know, man.
Think of the weirdos. Like, people are eating.
Usually they come in plastic, so I don't know if they get thrown away or if they get recycled or sent back to the people who made them.
People are eating like greasy or like slimy food, and they're touching the glasses when they're taking them off.
Okay.
And
so like rides like Disneyland or whatever that are 3D, yeah, you have glasses, but it's Disneyland, so you know they disinfect them. And then, but in the movie theater, they always give you a pair that come, wrapped. So you open up the wrapping and you wear them. So they must get recycled or cleaned up and then sent back, because they're plastic wrapped.
Okay. All right. I was just
it's a new pair. I hope they're not disposing them and reusing them.
I was just
instead.
trying to defend myself, because you looked at me like a crazy person when it was perfectly reasonable that I'd have a pair or two of those just lying around.
Well, it turns out that it's reasonable in your country, but not in this country.
Okay. It's actually really annoying if you forget to take them, because you have to buy a new pair, because most people who have been at least once to a 3D movie, and I don't go to a lot of 3D movies, like I've been to like a handful, but because I didn't like it very much, which is why. But yes, that's normal. That's perfectly normal here. Anyway, that is the show. Thank you very much for joining us. You can support everything we do by liking, subscribing, dinging the bell for notifications. All those things help out a lot on YouTube, so please do hit the buttons. And of course, you can support us elsewhere. In fact, I will thank our Patreon producers right now for the month. So thank you to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Al Treisman, Christopher Moy, David Brown, and Stanley. They were our producers at one of the higher tiers on Patreon. But Tara is going to tell you all more about that right now.
That's right, Peter.
Is that right? I'm not wrong. Oh my god, give me a ding the bell. Give me some points.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I need to go.
That's right. If you enjoy our reviews, please check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/MotherfuzzTV. And if you donate as low as $1 per month, you will get access to bonus episodes of The Ace. So if you're looking for your favorite B movie, that is not John Carpenter, but they live adjacent, please check out the Patreon page. And if you donate $5 per month, you'll get to vote on what we watch once a month, and you'll get access to these reviews one day early. And speaking of votes, next week is a vote winner. Wait, no, it's not. This week was.
Last week was a vote winner.
So
what are you talking about?
Next week is a different film.
Next week is a different film.
Next week you can get a day early.
This is why Tara only does the Patreon plug. Yes, next week.
That's fair. Yeah.
Next week's is Dune, the original 1984 David Lynch directed Dune. I'm looking forward to watching this again. I'm not gonna lie.
It's been a while for me.
And obviously that we're doing this because the new one's coming next month, and we're going to. Well, by the time you get this, I mean it'll be October anyway. So or by the time you get Dune, that is. So yeah, but you'll have this in September. So if you're watching this early enough, then yeah, it's still next month. Next month, the new Dune's film's coming, which obviously we're going to do, but we're going to catch up and make sure we've done the David Lynch one first, as well as Arrival at some point before Dune, the new one comes out, because that's another Villeneuve science fiction film that we should do. So there you go.
And Sicario and
no,
Prisoners.
that's not sci-fi.
Oh.
Sorry.
I'll just watch them.
No. If you want more spin-offs, you let me know, but those are not sci-fi, so they don't get done on this show.
I have no time.
I don't even know what you'd call that anyway. The gritty thriller experiment.
I like it, but I have no time.
the GTE. Aye, okay. Anyway, that is the show. Thank you very much for joining us once again. Get us on the Twitters at Screams Midnight, which is now the new home on Twitter for all Male Fuzz movies. This show Screams After Midnight, of course, and The Sacred Hockey Mask. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer ad salsa.